Well, I welcome you to the beginning of this 8-session course, and thank you for inviting me into your lives in this very important arena of parenting. I hope this experience will be beneficial for you, obviously, and if your arms have been twisted by a spouse to get you here, I sure do hope that by the end of these 8 sessions you'll have found it well worth your while, and especially desire, of course, for the children in your life to reap the greatest benefit of the time invested in this course. I'll just tell you a little bit about where this course grew out of. I was teaching university developmental psychology courses and parent-child relations. And after the course, the young parents would come up and say, well, how does this apply to parenting? And we'd head to the faculty club and we'd have discussions. And then soon the crowds grew too large and we had to find bigger spaces. And then they grew too large and we found still bigger spaces and then moved the course to a continuing education course specifically for parents at the university. And then about, almost 23 years ago now, moved the course out into the communities. And the demand just kept on getting greater and greater. Of course, all the other students, all they were interested in is this going to be on the exam? And I quite enjoyed the interaction with parents and focusing on the application of the material. And this took me on a long journey of putting the pieces together myself over 30 years now, of putting the pieces together from developmental science, and much has happened in developmental science. That is tremendously exciting now, and we'll share that with you. The pieces together from research, from my own professional experience as a clinical psychologist, and developmental psychologist. And then while all of this was happening, I was having children, and so added my own personal experience as a father of 5 and now a grandfather of 3. So hopefully you can have a sense that the material has been through a process, tested, and that it makes sense to you from deep inside, that it resonates with your inner intuitions. And the objective, the slant of this course, so to speak, will be to make sense of children from the inside out. I am absolutely convinced, and the more that I've worked with parents and those who work with parents and children, I'm absolutely convinced that the greatest key for changing what we do is insight, is what we see. And if we see differently, we'll end up doing differently. And hopefully, as you listen to this material and interact with the material, you can be a bit patient. First of all, suspend your questions of what should I do, and think more about how does this make sense of my Jason, my Sarah. How does it make sense of them from the inside out? And as it makes more sense, then something will automatically change in terms of the interaction. And if all it does is affirm those perceptions and strengthen your interaction, then this course will have done a good deed as well. That it will give greater confidence in the kind of parenting that you're doing. I have called this course, actually this is the first of a 3 series. I've called it The Power to Parent. And altogether there'll be about 24, 25 sessions, but this is the first 8 sessions of these. And I called it The Power to Parent because it seems that this is the missing piece. As parents, we can't fault ourselves, at least nowadays. I think in terms of responsibility, at least not those of you that are here. and not those of you that are taking the course. I think parents are incredibly responsible. But with the most important responsibilities on earth has to come the power to fulfill those responsibilities. You couldn't be given a job, so to speak, an important executive job, be president of a university, and not given the power to be able to execute those responsibilities. We need the power. Power has become a bit of a dirty word in our society. We've seen its abuse. Some of us have experienced its abuse, and yet without it, we can't do our job. And so I've gone right to what I think is a very important construct, is this idea of power, that responsibility without power leads to frustration. And I'm convinced that things are happening in our society that are resulting in parents losing the power they need to parent. And so a lot of frustration is happening when we just don't seem to have the authority, the clout to do our job, to fulfill our responsibilities. I've called this particular, the beginning series here, this set. Part one of this three-part series, The Vital Connection. And that will make much more sense as we go through these 8 sessions together. This will be the theme of every session. We will be coming back to this, that connection is absolutely vital in parenting. And in many ways, this also has been the missing piece, and that connection and power are absolutely related. And again, we know this in a sense intuitively, but what I hope to do is to bring some consciousness to it, to put some words to it, so that we can parent more with this in mind. These sessions will be divided into various parts, and this session 1. I have labeled here why children need to be in right relationship to the adults responsible for them, and that will become very obvious by the end of this session, and then we'll continue this theme throughout the 8 sessions as we go on. Now I'll start with a question, and how many of you, and I'm sure there are many that will be viewing the video course as well. How many of you have, at least from time to time, experienced difficulty in parenting much more than you ever thought that it would be? Yes, well, almost all of you. I would say estimated a good 80 to 90%. And I'm not surprised, and parenting isn't easy, but I'm going to suggest that parenting is probably more difficult nowadays than it needs to be. That is actually not as easy, not as natural as it has been in times past. This, despite the fact that we have never had more books, and I added one of those, right? That we've never had more experts, and some would call me that as well. That we've never had fewer children to parent, and probably never been so involved with our children. And yet, despite all of these things, that parenting is actually getting more difficult. Why would this be? And I think this brings us to the essential issue in parenting, is that if it was knowledge, then parenting would be easier. If it was fewer children and more leisure, then parenting would be easier. We've never had more leisure. If it was experts,